All right, good evening. Welcome to All Outdoors with Muck Simons and, of course, Darren Wandy, my partner. Tonight we got a great guest, uh, long-time outdoor writer, TV personality in the outdoor world, just an all-around great hunter, uh, awesome advocate for our sport. TJ Schwanky's here with us tonight. This is part two for us, TJ, because the first one we had some technical difficulties, but hopefully it all works out. First of all, thanks for joining us. This day and age, this is the way we seem to be able to get together is through Zoom calls and stuff like that. But I know Darren and I, we started that because of COVID, and it's just been rolling. So thanks a lot, TJ, for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. And I'm sad we had to do it twice. I'm always funnier the first time, but I'll try it this time. So
I always say that too. I'm way more entertaining the first time.
yeah, man, if you could have seen the first one, it was good.
Yeah.
So TJ, to start it off tonight, let's go back 20 plus years with the Outdoor Quest and your TV show that sort of stood the test of time. Tell us about how you got started originally, why you did what you did, and move forward down to 20 plus years. You're still at it. Tell us all about that.
Well, I mean, we can even go back further than that. I started kind of in the whole business as a walleye tournament fisherman, and I got approached from a television station out of Regina, along with Bob Kirkpatrick from Saskatchewan, to do a fishing show. And that was kind of my first taste ever of television. I didn't know anything about it, especially on the technical production side. So I kind of used that maybe as a little bit of a learning university process for me. And I really took my time to learn the whole process, the shooting, the editing. It was pretty easy just to stand in front of the camera and go fishing, but I found it really fascinating. So in 1999, decided, my passion's always been hunting. And there wasn't very many hunting shows around at all in 99. So decided to take a stab at doing a hunting show. So went down to SHOT Show, somehow managed to line up a few sponsors. And interesting story about that, when we went down to SHOT Show, I think there was 44 other television shows there. And I thought, oh my God, like, how are we ever going to compete in a market like that? When we went last year, I think there was 880 television shows there. So it just kind of puts it in perspective. But so we ended up doing a pilot, and there was no networks at all in Canada at the time broadcasting hunting. So we did a pilot, sent it to Outdoor Channel. They accepted it, and we were on TV, and it was kind of that fast. And so that was back in the days. We were still shooting Betacam, and we had 50-pound cameras, and we'd go through 50 pounds of batteries every day. I remember our editor, his edit suite, he had an array of hard drives there, and it was 16 gigs. And I was just like, oh my God, 16 gigs. Like, how could you ever fill that? And, now I'm running 5 or 6 terabyte drives just to try and keep up. So that's how far it came. So our first year of actual broadcast was 2000.
So what's the why is SHOT Show kind of the holy grail of outdoor shows? Like, why do you go down there? Are you pitching it to sponsors, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, and SHOT Show used to be a great place to go because there was only 42 TV shows there. Now with 800 there, it's a tough place to do business. So, you can't go down just cold and stop in and talk to people. I mean, you got to have meetings set up in advance. So for us now, it's primarily just a great place to go down and talk to all of our current sponsors. So we'll go down there, have meetings with them, talk about the upcoming season, any changes they want or any different things we're going to do. And, we may get in to see 4 or 5 companies that, we've never talked to before, but it's not like the old days when you could just walk down there and go talk to the head of Winchester and the head of, Sacco and things like that. It's just not like that anymore. So I feel bad for, guys getting started nowadays, trying to cold call on sponsors. I mean, it's brutal. And, as much as sometimes, the viewers always say there's so much sponsorship, there's too much sponsorship, we couldn't do it without them. I mean, I'm not sure if everyone understands how television works, but we have to buy our airtime. We have to pay all our own production costs. We have to pay all our hunts. We have to pay for everything, which is a terrible business model to start with, but that's what hunting and fishing television is. We're one of the few genres in television that actually has to pay for our own airtime. Most often it's the networks paying the shows to be on. So, you're $50,000 to $100,000 into it just to break even. So to kind of recoup that money for young shows coming up nowadays, it's a real challenge. I will say that, but you got to get down there. Your name's got to get known, and thankfully, I've been in this business for, I think I wrote my first magazine article in 1986. So I've been in it a long time. I've got a lot of personal relationships, and still, the best business relationships are personal relationships.
I know the first take of this interview, I noticed that your sponsors are long-time sponsors, a lot of them. You've been with those guys for a lot of years. What's the big difference between maybe something like your show and people that jump companies and stuff like that? But do you believe in your product that you're with them? Like, are they that good to you guys, or is it the product that you believe in and that's what you go after?
Yeah, I guess we're in a pretty enviable position now. Like, we've been with some of our sponsors probably going on close to 20 years. And so we kind of have the cream of the crop of the sponsors. And there isn't a sponsor we have whose product I wouldn't use, even if I wasn't doing television. I get when guys are coming up new from the bottom. I mean, you got to kind of get money where you can ever take it. And I know we were no different when we started. We had some sponsors that, we maybe used for a year or so and just decided, what, it's just not worth it trying to make their products work in our show. So, that's the great thing about the sponsors we have now is we don't have to make their products work in our show. We just use them and they work. So our typical process now to bring a sponsor on is we'll use the product for a year or two before we'll even consider. And probably our most recent sponsor would be Stony Creek Clothing out of New Zealand. And we were on a hunt in New Zealand, probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. And our outfitter was like a huge Stony Creek fan. And we kind of started looking at it. And so we ended up buying some gear down there and brought it back here, tested it out. Finally got a hold of the owner of Stony Creek and talked to him a bit, worked with their gear for another year and then decided, it really was a good fit. But there's been other companies, and I won't mention any names, that we've done the same thing with and just decided, what, it's just not a good fit for our show. And I'm kind of getting at the age now, I don't want to have to work that hard to promote something. I just want something to basically promote itself.
Yeah.
Well, back when you guys were pitching your show, I know you had a partner, Richard, but back then, other than your writings, was it celebrity based? And when I say that, like, you watch a TV show and you always know like who the celebrities or the big names in the industry. So when you guys were trying to break into the industry, did you find it difficult when you were fighting with the, like the real trees and stuff like that back those days?
The big advantage we had was being Canadian at the time, which it's a terrible disadvantage now when you're trying to deal with US companies. But the big advantage at the time was Canadians, because everybody dreamed of hunting in Canada. So as soon as we said we're from Canada, we hunted there. And we did have some good relationships with some good companies down there. We started with Thompson Center very early on. I stayed with them until they sold. And so we had a couple companies really step up in the beginning and kind of help. It was a huge buy on for Outdoor Channel even then. So, we needed a good amount of money just to get started. And I know we talked a little bit about this last time, about this all has to be a business. And I've treated this as a job since day one. I didn't want to be on television to be on television. I wanted to be on television because it was a cool career. I mean, I love hunting. I love the video aspects of it, but I wasn't going to pay to do it. I mean, I wanted to get paid to do it. So we've actually made money every year since day one. Sometimes not a lot of money, but we've always treated it as a business. And that was our big thing going in. And I credit a lot of that to our longevity, is because it has been a business. And I credit that to our sponsors' involvement with us too. Like, we haven't jumped around sponsors a lot. And I can honestly say we have never dropped a sponsor we've had. We've certainly changed some sponsors over the years, and it was always, they were going a different business direction, or, the company sold or something like that. So we have changed sponsors, but certainly we've been offered more money from other companies to drop a current sponsor. It's just something we won't do. We're very loyal to the people we work with. We believe in the brands, and it can't all be about money, but it has to be about money. And my first piece of advice, I get a lot of young producers coming to me and, looking for advice. And I don't know if they always like what they hear, but I'm really honest with them. And my first piece of advice to every one of them is the price you set today is the price you're setting for life. So, if you're going after a bow sponsor and you'll tell them you'll work for a bow today, guess what? You're going to be working for a bow 10 years from now. So it's hard in the beginning because you kind of figure, well, if I can just get in that door, I can show them what I can do, and, it'll get better. And I would say 99% of the time that never happens.
Have you ever had times with the show that you just want to say, I'm done, I want to walk away from it? Or
Yeah, there's been the odd time and even 2 weeks in the bush and haven't got a show out of it. And, you're licking your wounds and you're trying to get dry and warm and everything else. But overall, I like the business. Honestly, I hate the sales aspects of it and all that kind of stuff the worst. I love the production side. I'm really happy being a cameraman. I'm really happy being an editor. I don't mind being a host, but it would kind of be editor, cameraman, host would be my three favorite things about the job. But even now at my age, I still look forward to getting up every day and going to work. And most people my age right now are kind of planning for retirement, and I'm kind of planning how we can make our show better for the next 10 years.
Well, I think that with the advent of digital technology, it's got to make life a lot better for. And I think of the shows that pop up just every year. There's always 5 or 6 guys that just want to do it, and I mean basically because you can grab a high def video camera and basically start doing a show. So it's got to be easier for you to produce nowadays.
Oh my God, yeah. When we started, our Betacam was like $50,000, and that was 20 years ago. So, whatever that'd be worth now. Our editor's edit suite, he had $100,000 invested in it. We just bought a new backup 4K camera for $1,800. Our primary camera is only $4,000. My whole edit suite might be worth 10 grand nowadays. So it has made it very affordable to get into. And it's been good too, because it keeps prices down. We're probably almost making the same thing for sponsorships today that we were 10 or 15 years ago. So there hasn't been a huge increase in what sponsors are paying us, but conversely, there has been a decrease in our costs. So, it has kind of balanced out. So it does make it easy or easier for guys to get into it. I think one of the follies I always see with, people getting into the television business is, they have 2 or 3 or 4 years of footage all stocked up, and they go out like gangbusters that first year, have 13 great episodes, and then all of a sudden realize that they have 6 months to get the next 13, and that's where the crunch comes. So that's why a lot of shows don't ever make it past year 2 or 3, is it's just too stressful. And like with Vanessa and I, like we don't have any co-hosts or anything else. It's the two of us that need to get 13 shows done. And it was great when we were working with Rich and Sandy, because we only had to do 6 or 7 shows a year. And then when they decided to go on and do the trapping show, because that was kind of their passion, all of a sudden it fell on Vanessa and I to fill 6 or 7 more shows a year. And it's a big ask. Especially, living where we do. A lot of things are on draw. It's not like you can just go buy 13 tags and go on 13 hunts. So we really need to plan carefully. And obviously COVID has thrown a huge wrench into that. We're just kind of canceling hunts, moving hunts around right now. And, we booked a hunt for 2022 yesterday, and we're kind of like, geez, I hope we can go on that.
Yeah. Let's just dip into that a little bit, TJ. Like with COVID, obviously borders are still closed. Blair, who joins us on here, is kind of a co-host as well. He's involved with a bear camp up here, and they're like, well, we don't know what's happening. And how in your mind or in your perspective, COVID, how are we going to deal with that situation and the hunting industry and all the outfitters that happen to be in that industry?
Yeah, let's get Trudeau out of Ottawa first. That would be a big help. But I don't know. I really feel for the outfitters, because their hands are totally tied. At least, on the television side of things, I can still hunt in Alberta. I can still hunt in British Columbia or Saskatchewan. So I do have options. The outfitter, yeah, they can take a few Canadian residents out, but it doesn't pay their bills hardly at all. So, guys like Blair, they lost last spring season for bear, and it's pretty much for sure they're going to lose this spring season too. And holy man, like, how do you lose 2 years of income? Getting $600 a week or whatever it is from the federal government certainly doesn't make up for that. I've got a buddy who's a waterfowl outfitter, here in Alberta, and his costs a year not to operate are $180,000 a year. So I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. The whole tourism industry, and which outfitters are a part of, I would say between the tourism and the restaurant industry, I feel so bad for both of those industries, because there's just no relief in sight, and there's no planning in sight. A lot of these guys doing the big fall hunts, they're starting to move gear in now. A lot of these guys up north, they'll haul gear in on the winter roads and things like that, and they're going, yeah, I don't know if we should or we shouldn't, and nobody can give them an answer. I'm a perpetual planner. I have to plan, and I can't imagine for those guys like not being able to plan.
Well, Blair said that if they don't bear hunt this year, the deposits they received from 2020 would still be good, but not until 2022, which would mean they really wouldn't get full income till 2023, which that's 3 years of, like you said, no income.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's real. We've got several friends in New Zealand who are, fairly big outfitters there, and they're in the middle of losing their second season right now, and their government's telling them not to even plan a third, like another year from now, not to plan a season. So, same thing. We know one guy over there. He does about 300 hunts a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like that's 9. So now he's got to squish those 600 hunters because he's always booked 2 years in advance. So he's already got deposits from 600 guys. And now he's got to squeeze all of those in, plus all his other hunters. And it's a disaster. I mean, I sometimes feel sorry for myself, what we're going through, trying to get through COVID. And then you kind of put it all in perspective and you think what some of those guys are going through, and it's mind boggling.
Mm-hmm.
So TJ, with the show, what made you guys continue as long as you have, and like now you guys are sort of like the quote unquote legends or the people that other people look to. What year are you guys in, and what's keeping you guys going? Like, are you in Canada? Have you switched gears into exotics, or where are you at?
So right now we're in year 21 of broadcast, and what keeps us going every day is we're having fun doing it still. I mean, I'm a bit of a workaholic. There's no question about that. And I've got to be doing something, and why not do something you love? And I really do enjoy this. And, I think every year we put out a better project or product. I mean, we definitely strive to do that. We're not kind of sitting on our laurels going, well, this is as good as we get. Every year I want to improve our product. I want to do better. I want to do better hunts. I want to do better video, better editing, everything else. So that really keeps me going too. It really keeps me pumped about the product is making it better every day. How long are we going to keep going? I guess, as long as our sponsors keep supporting us, as long as our viewers keep watching us. And I guess the other big question is how long is mainstream television going to be around? I mean, kind of my guesstimation is, we've got maybe another 5 to 7 years of network television. I don't know how guys are ever going to figure out how to monetize the internet. It's just so unquantifiable. Right now, I mean, at least on network television, what your audience is. When you go to a sponsor, you can sell a cost per thousand. On the internet, you're just kind of selling, imagination at best. So, and the great thing about network television is there's one spot to watch it. Where the internet, it's just so scattered, it's so different. And I guess at some point, and probably long beyond my time, people will figure out how to monetize the internet in the hunting and fishing business. But boy, there isn't many people doing it now. I don't really know that there's anybody making much money off of it.
Well, TJ, I know that you basically do the same thing Darren and I do with the program. And I watched one of your programs with your longtime friend, Randy Newberg, and you guys addressed that about how he has sort of went from, he started when you guys were around, and now he's pretty much internet based. Yeah. But he's been on TV forever.
Yeah, and he's one of the guys who's kind of cracked that nut. And Steve Nell's another one, and there's a few of them, but for the most part, it's still a mystery. There's just, we're all kind of scratched. I mean, we're all kind of involved in the internet a little bit. And I mean, I get a check every month from YouTube, and I get a check every month from a few other places, but it's certainly not enough to continue on what we're doing. That's for sure.
Nice.
I know you talked a little bit about footage, and I have some, personal respect for filming. I was able to film a hunt with Cody a couple years ago, and it was 6 days, and it was full days, and we didn't pull a camera out, a couple times because we thought we were onto some deer and stuff. So I know what it takes to, film wise to film an episode. So you're talking about, limitations to what you guys have in BC or in Alberta, and you can go other places in Canada, but can you give our listeners a little bit of an idea of, okay, we're gonna put in for tags, we happen to get drawn, we can get open tags, and then what happens for 13 episodes? What kind of things are you guys creative with?
Well, that's exactly. I feel bad for you having to spend 6 days with Cody, by the way. So
It was entertaining. It was
Cody's a good buddy of mine, so I like to give him a hard time. But no, I mean, it is a real planning thing. So that's why we always try to do, one overseas hunt a year or something like that. So, if we go to Africa, I mean, we can typically pick up 5 or 6 shows in a couple weeks there. So we may use 3 this year and 3 next year. So it's a great investment. Like we can go there, come back with 6 shows, probably for less than it cost us to shoot 6 shows at home, really, just the amount of time we put into it. So going forward into this year, the one really lucky thing, and it wasn't great planning or anything, it was just luck, is we have a lot of priority points in Alberta for some good draws. So I think right now we're looking at drawing 6 or 7 tags that we're guaranteed of. Like we have a great priority system in Alberta, so we know when we're going to draw tags. So I'm pretty much guaranteed to draw in 6 or 7 tags, and then hopefully we can pick up another 3 or 4 hunts with general tags. So all of a sudden we're at 10 or 11 hunts right there, and hopefully by then we can maybe do something in the spring or something like that. So we're actually sitting really good. Like we got lucky. And the same thing, like for the season we're broadcasting now, like the bulk of that was shot in 2020 and a little bit in early 2021. But, we were able to travel it. We got to England, did a couple of great shows there. We were down in Mexico, got my desert sheep hunt done. And then all of a sudden COVID hit. And, we definitely lost some plans this fall, had to do some massive readjusting. And thankfully the animals really cooperated with us this fall. And, we had some great hunts in Alberta on general tags, but we never had a single draw tag in Alberta this year, just because we had all these great US draws. And it was like, oh, we're in trouble now. But the way we're sitting right now, so we're still 2 shows short for this season, but we've got time now to do a couple spring bear hunts, or maybe a spring bear hunt and a turkey hunt. So it's all working out pretty well. We kind of do things a little differently too, which has really helped us. Most people who shoot 13 shows air 13 shows in a row, and then they'll air them again as repeats. So we kind of break ours up. Like we'll do 3 shows, repeat, do 3 shows, repeat, and then we'll repeat 6, and then we'll shoot another 7 again in 3rd and 4th quarter. So our kind of thoughts behind that process was, we have new programming every quarter of the year. So it's not like you're always watching repeats of our show. And that's the biggest complaint that people have is, they watch your 13 shows and then, there's, 40 or what is there, 40, how many or 40 weeks? Yeah, 38 weeks of the season left or whatever it is, with all repeats. Mm-hmm. So we've tried to break it up. But the great thing about that is now I've got some shows that actually aren't even due to the network until August. So it gives us some time in the spring. Again, it wasn't brilliant planning. It was more we did it just because we wanted to break our season up. But now we look like geniuses because, I've still got shows due in August, but, we've got some spring hunts we can do and things like that. So we're actually sitting way better. I mean, I feel bad for people right now. Like I'm editing show number 6 right now. And if I was having to do 7 through 13 in a row right after this, I'd be just in a mad scramble, but I don't. So, that's one thing that's worked out good for us.
What about your audience and over the year, like with the internet being so prevalent, have you seen a decline in your viewers? And how do you keep it fresh?
Well, that's a great question. And like our viewers are at an all-time high in the whole history of the show right now. And I think a lot of that has to do with COVID. Television watching numbers have gone up between 150 and 200% in the last year.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's, and I would think, our style of hunting, just Vanessa and I, our ages and everything, I think our following are still more TV people than, some 20-something-year-old people that are doing television. So we kind of do have that advantage as well. So, our numbers have stayed, they've actually risen. So that's been really good. And I think it's just our demographics. So we try to keep things fresh. And one of the biggest traps I think you can get into is, you post on Facebook, well, what would you like to see on our show? And you'll get 59 different answers. And then you try to make all 59 people happy. And then you've got a brutal show because there's no focus, there's no direction to it. So, we've kind of sat down and looked at what we want to do. So we want to do a bunch of, do-it-yourself stuff right here at home because our viewers like that and we like it. So that's a part of what we do. But we really like to travel as well. And we've got a good following of traveling hunters. So what we've tried to do in the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years, really concentrated on it, was try to pick hunts that are actually quite affordable in the scheme of international hunting, but still offer some great free range hunting, maybe some of the lesser known species. We did Barbary sheep in Africa. And, we all know about Aoudad in Texas and New Mexico, but the same species are in South Africa. They're free range. They live in 8,000 foot mountains there. It's just an awesome hunt. I mean, you could actually fly to South Africa, hunt Barbary sheep and fly home cheaper than you could fly to Texas and do it. So we've really keyed in, I think, on those kind of hunts. Like, we don't want to be the people that hunt, outside what the normal person can't do. I think we really want to show, if you go on a vacation with your family to Mexico, you can afford to go to South Africa. It's really that simple. But we also want to show a different side of the places we hunt. I mean, I think, most people think South Africa, all high fenced hunting. Well, we've found some great, free range hunting there. These are animals that have lived there since day one. It's just like hunting farm and ranch country here at home. So for us, it feels really comfortable. I mean, you go out and hunt kudu, it's just like hunting elk. You go out and hunt eland. These are all free range animals, and the prices are just super affordable. So I think that's been our real focus is just kind of keep it real, keep it what our viewers can do, and hopefully show them some things that maybe they've never thought of. Like, we went to England in January of last year. We went and hunted muntjac and Chinese water deer. And it's, they're two animals that most people have never even heard of, but it was just one of the super coolest hunts we've ever done. And it was really an affordable hunt. Fly right into London. We were hunting within an hour and a half of there, and it was just a great hunt. So it was all free range. It's things you don't think exist. So we've tried to show that travel part of the show as well, that it is affordable, it's easy to get to, and you can do it. The other thing we've added this year is a cooking segment. We've always had, we do a lot of wild game cooking. I mean, we live on wild game, but we've never really shared that on the show. We've always shared it on Facebook and through our writing and stuff. And people are always like, why don't you do some cooking segments? So we're going to do 6 this year. And so we've already done 3, and they've been just super well received. So like I say, we're always looking for something, and we do accept input from our viewers. It's not like I'm ignoring what they say. It's just, you can't post on Facebook and ask what you'd like and try and satisfy everyone. It's got to kind of fit into your vision. And there's going to be people love your show, and there's going to be people hate your show. And you can't get bent out of shape about that, because that's just the way it is. I mean, the people that don't like it won't watch it, and that's fine. I mean, you're never going to make them happy, but we do have a good, loyal viewership.
So obviously, long time TV career with your background and everything that's happening, but also a long time writing career. Just fill us in on how many publications, how things have changed. I know electronic is kind of taking over paper type of thing, but just fill us in on about how you got started with that, and then just kind of gradually get us into nowadays what's happening. So
yeah, I mean, a bit of a funny story how I got started writing. It was one day I decided I should be a writer and submitted an article to a magazine, and thankfully it got accepted. Because I mean, if it wouldn't have, I'm sure my ego would have been crushed and I never would have tried again. Like, the second article I ever sold in my life was to North American Whitetail, which at the time was just a huge magazine that was way outside of my class to be writing in. But the one big advantage I think I had when I was young was I was a really good photographer. And that was back in the days we were still shooting film, so we were shooting slides. So, not everybody had a portfolio of 10,000 photos. I did. So an editor could look at my stuff and go, man, that guy's got some really great photos. He's a really crappy writer, but I can fix that writing pretty easily, as long as I can use his photos. So I think that's what kind of got me in the door. Like, when I go back and read some of the first stuff I wrote, it's like, oh my God, like, this is terrible. But I think that part of my craft has improved. So like 1986, I published my first article, and kind of gone on from them. And I think I was looking the other day, and I'm pretty close to having published 1,200 magazine articles since then. I've written a book, I've written for a few other books and things like that. So I probably at the height of my writing career, before I got really serious about television, I was probably doing about 150 articles a year. Now I'm probably down to 40 or 50 articles a year. Just, that's all I can fit in. I've somehow managed to keep everything still in Canada. Like, I'm a super proud Canadian, and we started in the States with our television program, but we only air in Canada now, and somehow we figured out how to make a living here with it. I don't have a lot of desire to go to the States. My writing's the same. I might write for half a dozen US publications in a year, where the other 40 articles I write are all for Canadian publications. So we're just a really proud Canadian, and I like interacting with Canadians. And I guess I feel, what I do as a writer and as a filmmaker kind of resonates with Canadians.
When it comes to your writing, TJ, are you keeping a journal of your adventures and then writing, or like how do you cover so many different topics that come, from your mind? Or like, do you say, oh, there's a topic I really want to, investigate and then write about it, or like, where's your material coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I love to write about my hunts. To me, those are pleasurable things to write. So yeah, I mean, when we're out there, we do keep a bit of a journal, and filming is obviously the best journal there is. I mean, I know I was writing a piece here about a waterfowl hunt we did this fall, and I was like, oh, what would happen? And so I just go back and look at the footage, and it's easy. So that part's easy, but I'm kind of a techie guy too. Like I'm really into guns and bullets and like the real physics side of it, the real tech side of it. So I do get a lot of pleasure out of doing a lot of testing on that kind of stuff and writing about it as well. So those are probably the two things I write the most about, are like the hunts and the adventures we've been on, and then kind of that really technical side of shooting, of hunting. And then I enjoy writing the political stuff too, and it kind of often gets me in trouble. But great thing, Alberta Outdoorsman magazine is a magazine we have here in Alberta that is published 12 times a year. So I do 12 columns for him, and I've got free reign. I can write about anything I want. So sometimes I get pretty political in there, and I like to think all my stuff is well researched though. Like if I'm going to take on a topic, I really want to know about it. And Outdoor Canada, I do a column for them as well. And a lot of times it's about the politics of hunting and fishing as well. So I don't mind getting involved in that stuff because I really enjoy that aspect of it.
Do you get some heated debates with people over that though?
Well, it's funny. I was just on the phone with Richard for about an hour and a half today. We were talking about that. And I think with COVID, like everybody just seems so cranky and mad right now. And, probably in the last 20 years of writing, I've maybe had 2 or 3 nasty letters sent to magazines about me. And I think in the last 2 months, I've had that many. So yeah, I do have some. And, sometimes I write about some pretty controversial subjects, and I'm not afraid to point fingers when fingers need to be pointed. I guess my thought on writing everything I do is I want to make a better future for our heritage of hunting, our heritage of fishing. And if there's fingers to be pointed at somebody who's trying to stop that, I'm not afraid to point them. And yeah, sometimes you'll get some backlash. So the one good thing, and I just had a piece in Outdoor Canada I did, and I had a biologist really take me on it, which was kind of a little bit intimidating because I'm not a biologist, but I'd really researched the piece well, and I talked to several biologists about it. So I had a pretty good comeback to his criticisms of it. So it kind of made me feel good, I guess, because sometimes, when you got a deadline, you got to get stuff out the door, you may not research things as well as you should. And I was like, oh my God, I got a biologist questioning me on this. I hope I did my research good on this, and thankfully I did.
And that's just good journalism, right? So
yeah, it is. And I mean, I guess like me, my ego is as fragile as anyone else, and there's nothing worse than being proven wrong on something you wrote. I mean, to me, that's kind of the biggest insult I could get, and not the person insulting me. It's the fact that I was wrong and I insulted myself.
That happened to me one time. I was doing an elk calling seminar and elk hunting, and for me, I don't mind. Anybody can watch my seminars from experienced to new, but I do note that there's guys in there that probably know every bit as much as I do about elk calling elk, and that's fine. But one guy called me out; it really derailed me. I just had to kind of just say, you know what, if you want to talk, and we could talk about it after the program. But he did that once to me. He was really just calling BS on everything I was saying, and he came after the program and we talked, and I think his intentions were good, but boy, he called me straight up, and it was almost, it derailed me for a bit. I had to collect myself.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of times there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? So, I mean, probably what you were saying was right. Probably what he was saying was right. But yeah, like you say, if you're not really confident sometimes in what you're talking about, or the first time it happens like that, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. And that's kind of my standard answer to people now is, if they do things a different way and get the same result, I mean, they're not wrong, but, give me the same courtesy of telling you how I do it my way, because I'm not wrong either. We're both getting the same results.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want you just to walk us through maybe your favorite North American animal that you've hunted. Share a story with us, so our viewers love hearing stories. And then maybe give us one international, if it's Africa or something you guys are really proud of, an animal that you took, or maybe a really good adventure. So give us a scenario in each of those two.
I'm a sheep hunter. Like I've always been addicted to sheep hunting, and that's I think it was back in, I don't know what it was, 1984 or 5. I took a trip out to I was from Manitoba. That's where I was living at the time. I was born in Manitoba, raised there, never seen the mountains or anything. And
whereabouts, TJ?
Yeah, I was born in Winnipeg, but I ended up
Okay.
working up in Gillam and quite a few places like that in the north. So Genpeg. But so drove out to Alberta, saw some sheep, and I went, I'm moving. And I did. I didn't have a job. I had nothing, but I was coming out here because there was sheep. And I don't know where that fascination for bighorn sheep came from. I know I read like a lot of Jack O'Connor and things like that back in the day. And I kind of credit a lot of that. I mean, there was no internet back then. There was really nothing on television. It was, you read stuff in Outdoor Life and Field and Stream. And Jack O'Connor was just one of my favorite writers. And he was a sheep hunter. So darn it, I was going to be one too. And so moved out to Alberta. And, sheep have been my passion ever since. And, kind of look at where we started. I mean, I killed my first bighorn 2 years after we moved here in 1988. And I mean, it was a disaster. I mean, we did everything possible wrong you could have done wrong. And, still it's the best bighorn sheep I've killed to date. But, it's just how far things have come. And we had terrible gear. We made some really bad decisions that, almost cost us our life and things like that, but it's never dissuaded me from wanting to sheep hunt. And I'm kind of getting older now, and I mean, most people my age aren't sheep hunting anymore, but it's still a real passion with me. And I know, my backpack hunting days are probably slowly or quickly getting behind me. I mean, I hope I get a few more years yet, but kind of getting back into the horse thing again now to kind of extend that sheep hunting a little bit. So for me, that's absolutely 100%. And I guess my first bighorn in Alberta would be still one of the most memorable things I've ever killed, just because it really, kindled that fire and really just made it go, kind of thing. And just a quick story on that. We went in the day before the season opened, and we ended up spotting 2 rams up on a ridge. And for whatever reason, it was only an hour and a half hike up to them, and we were the only ones in the valley. We had a nice camp down in the bottom, but whatever reason, we decided we were going to climb that ridge and spend the night up there, about 400 or 500 yards below those sheep. Well, about 10 o'clock, it started to pour rain, and there was lightning striking below us. And it was probably one of the most terrifying nights I've ever been. And then somewhere in the middle of the night, it froze, and we had about 3 feet of snow. And I was sleeping in a garbage bag. That's how well prepared I was. My buddy was in his big yellow rain suit. So kind of woke up in the morning and went how the heck are we going to get off this ridge? It was pretty treacherous getting up there without snow. So finally made it down to our camp, got a fire going, got in our sleeping bags, just spent a day sleeping and got warm. And a couple of days later, the weather cleared up. Those sheep had come down off the ridge. They were the smart ones. They were probably down near where our camp was when that storm blew in, not up top of the ridge, but they ended up shooting a great ram 3 days later. And so that's still the hunt. I mean, I still get chills almost talking about that hunt. And, that, like I say, that was in 1988.
You recently posted a picture of you with the backpack. Was that from that era?
That was you saw me.
I saw that. Yeah,
saw me with the rancher hat on and the 20-pound tree bark camo and everything.
So that's awesome.
TJ, am I correct? You got a Marco Polo?
Yeah, so I did. I guess about 9 or 10 years ago now. I went to Kyrgyzstan and hunted Marco Polo there, and I don't know why I did it. I mean, I really couldn't afford it and anything else, but it was just one of those things I wanted to do. And I ended up getting a pretty good kind of last minute deal on the hunt and went and, that country is as messed up and as big a disaster as you ever want to go hunt in, but it was an awesome hunt. I ended up going with 2 guys from British Columbia who I'd never met. Turned out to be 2 of the most awesome guys I've ever hunted with. And I don't know if I'd have made it through that hunt without them. I think we all kind of had our down days, but the other 2 guys were there to kick you in the butt and tell you to smarten up and have a good day. So we had just a super fun hunt. I ended up killing, just a cranker ram there. Yeah. Shot an ibex while we were there, and we lived. We were running Russian check stops at night. And when we flew into Bishkek, it was right after they'd had a coup there. And this was the first election after the coup. And so they were flying all the expats out, like all the Canadians, all the South Africans who work in the gold mine there. They were getting them out because this was a really dangerous time to be in Kyrgyzstan. And, here's us three dumb Canadians. We're going hunting in Kyrgyzstan kind of thing. And we kind of put it all in perspective. We were in downtown Bishkek kind of walking around. I mean, you can still see the bullet holes in the walls and things like that from, 4 years earlier. So sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Where is trophy quality big on to you, or like where are you at with your World Slam and stuff like that for sheep?
Yeah, for me, it's funny. I was talking to Richard about this again today, and we all know about the 5 steps that hunters go through in their careers, and like I'm definitely at step 5. I mean, it's all about the experience for me now. I mean, yeah, I definitely still the harvest to kill is part of the hunt, and that it always will be. That's still the ultimate goal, but it's not the be all and end all. But for me, I just kind of want to smell the roses throughout the whole entire hunt. So a lot of the destinations we pick to go on hunts now, we're going there because of the destination, not the animals. I did complete my Grand Slam of North American sheep in January, and I honestly haven't even registered it yet. Like, it wasn't a big deal to me. I really wanted to hunt all 4 North American sheep because they live in such different places. They're such different sheep, but to actually, get a Grand Slam really wasn't why I did it. And, maybe I'll register it one day, maybe I won't. It really isn't that important to me. And I find hunting at home now, like at one time, trophy quality was the be all and end all. I think, and everybody goes through that stage, and I'm not criticizing it all because everybody does. But you know what? Now I don't worry about it. The 3-point elk walks out, he's going in the freezer. And I'll be just as happy as if I just shot a 350 elk kind of thing. So I just have some great hunts, and Vanessa and I hunt together, and we just have a ball doing it. We have so much fun doing it, and that's been a great thing about doing the show too. Is we do it super low key. It's just the 2 of us. So when she hunts, I film. When I hunt, she films. So we don't have a camera crew there to babysit and kind of detract from our trips. Kind of at the end of the hunting, like it's still work when you're filming. Like there's no question about it. And I know you talked about that, Darren, that, when you were with Cody, like it's work every day. And so it's kind of nice just to decompress at night. And I don't want to have to deal with a camera crew or anything else. It's just Vanessa and I are on vacation, maybe for those 3 or 4 hours in the evening when we drink a few glasses of wine and have a good meal or something like that. So we've kind of blended that all in, that it is fun. We're keeping it fun. And for me, I just want to go. Like we booked a hunt to Spain today. Or yesterday, just because I want to go to Spain. Like, I don't, what we hunt there isn't nearly as important as experience Spain. And the animals we picked were animals that were kind of in different parts of the country, just so we'd see, a lot of different parts of Spain.
We had a couple of gentlemen on our last program, just a couple of regular guys from our part of the country that sort of do some pretty amazing hunts in their own right. And we kind of asked them the same question of, what was the attraction with traveling and hunting like that as opposed to at home. And both of them said that it was become, at their age, it became more about the experience of the travel and then the hunting with it, that it was just it was a draw to them. So it wasn't just the hunt, it was like going to a new culture and experiencing the people and stuff like that. And I think I don't know, you can maybe speak on this being in the TV industry, but I think people want to see that now. I think they want to sort of live vicariously through your eyes when it comes to the hunting show. I mean, no, of course everybody wants to see a big whitetail and stuff like that, but yeah, those guys were like, I asked them, and they said it really wasn't about the hunt, it was about the culture that they were going to.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing we've really started to try portraying. It's funny, when we first started with Outdoor Channel, I think our first year on there we had 42 kills in 13 shows. I mean, it was whack and stack because that's what people wanted to watch back then. It was still pretty novel to see something get shot on television 21 years ago. So, you had to be just pumping stuff out. And, I think this year we'll maybe have, 15 or 16 animals, being taken on 13 shows. And, we used to go to Africa and sometimes we'd put 2 or 3 animals in a show. And I don't know why, because there's some great hunts there, but you just got kind of trapped, I guess, in that mindset that people just wanted to see things die. And I think you're 100% right. I think people are really starting to appreciate that. I guess I go back to our age demographic again on our show. I think we do have a lot of people. The cool thing about traveling and hunting is you get to see parts of a country that the average tourist will never see. And that's been the super cool thing for us. We were in South Africa, I think it was 3 years ago. We went there on a bird hunt of all things, and it was really neat. But the guy's ranch we were hunting on, he had a bunch of cave paintings there that were anywhere from 10 to 20,000 years old. And you put it in perspective, like the pyramids are 3,500, 4,000 years old. So this is old stuff, right? But like none of it was open to the public. But, he took us around and showed us some of these amazing cave paintings, and every painting was of animals. So we were seeing hunters from 20,000 years ago, here's how they showed people what they did. They painted on a cave wall, and we were there with our cameras showing what we did. So it was kind of it was a neat moment because it really connected you back 20,000 years ago. And really things haven't changed that much.
That was their TV or their editorial they wrote.
Yeah, 100% it was. I mean, that was their story right there. We went and speared a big eland today. and you could tell what they love to eat the most, because eland was probably in, 70% of their drawing. So, I mean, obviously they hunted eland a lot. And speaking from experience, eland is awesome to eat.
Yeah.
Hey, so TJ, so I told a buddy that you're coming on, somebody that's been following you pretty much his whole life. And he wanted me to ask you, if you watch hunting shows and what you like or dislike about the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. And I mean, I really like Schwanky's show. And I know a lot of people don't, and a lot of people don't like Jim, but I've known Jim forever. And Jim's got that wanderlust just like I do. I mean, he's traveled all over the world. He's done everything. And, everybody thinks, well, if I had the money, I could do that too. And I'm going to call BS on that. Half the people couldn't do it even with the money, because it takes a big mental commitment, a big physical commitment, and everything else. So I really like his show just because he talks about the travel, he talks about the culture. And his show, I guess, is kind of morphed into that as well. I mean, it wasn't like that. So yeah, I mean, that's probably one of my favorites. I love some of the African shows, like Dark and Dangerous is kind of one of my favorite shows. I'm trying to think what else I really watch. Like,
do you ever see a show that you're just like, what are they thinking?
Yeah, there's a few of those. I won't name them, but like Cody and Kelsey, I love watching their show. I mean, they've got that. Cody's a phenomenal hunter. He's got a great sense of humor, and they bring the whole family into it. So I guess I like shows that are, if your show is totally about whack and stack, guaranteed I'm not going to watch it. But if you're telling a story and there's a lot more to it, yeah, I'll tune in. And it's hard to take the producer out of me, though. Like sometimes you just want to get critical. It's like, why did they do that? So it sometimes makes watching television not as enjoyable as it could be, because you're still acting like the producer.
I've got another question. Something I've always wanted and to ask. So when you approach these outfitters, is it on your dime, or are you making arrangements with them? Because I think lots of people think, they watch your show and they think, oh, TJ's just getting a free hunt, or you know what I mean? Like, so I've always wondered about that. If that's something that you guys like, how does that work?
Well, I mean, again, like when we first started, yeah, I mean, we definitely got quite a few free hunts because money was tough, so you kind of took whatever scraps you could get. And things that are free are typically free for a reason. So, maybe you're not always going with the best outfitters. You're going with outfitters that really need promotion, and obviously for a reason. So kind of at the stage we're at in our lives now, when we pick where we want to go hunt, we try and find the best outfitters. And yeah, obviously we look for a bit of a deal because, we're offering good exposure for them. We figure it costs us around $10,000 to shoot an episode, or to have an episode go to air. That includes, production, post-production, buying the airtime and everything else. So, we're making a $10,000 investment in that hunt. So, we kind of want the outfitter to make some investment in us, but to think that every hunt we go on is free or anything like that is, right now with COVID pricing and everything like that, you could probably do better than most of our TV deals have been in the past, kind of thing. So, but that's because, again, we're picking who we want to work with. And I guess hopefully that sets our show apart a little bit too, is when we go hunt with an outfitter, it's a really quality outfitter because we've done our research. And again, I just haven't got time to go with someone who's not good at what they do. And it's not that they're going to guarantee results or anything else, but we're going to have a good, honest, legal, hard hunt with them. And that's all I really want to ask when we do something.
So, TJ, I've been following your work that you do with the antelope program out in Alberta. I know that we talked about last time, and of course, with the glitch we had. Can you just explain how that all started and what we're talking about, and kind of your involvement with that program?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually do some contract work for the Alberta Fish and Game Association. I manage a lot of their wildlife projects. I manage a lot of their, we have, I think it's pretty close to 100,000 acres of habitat land in the province. So I manage a lot of those properties. These are actually the things I do that make money. So, but it was 12 years ago, they came to me and they had this project where they were working with private land. Well, they were working actually on Suffield base at the time, but they wanted to expand the project to work with private landowners to go in and make their fences more friendly for pronghorn antelope. And a lot of people don't realize that pronghorn antelope very rarely ever jump fences, and some of them just won't do it. So they have to crawl underneath. And if the wires are set too low, they can't crawl underneath. So, you've been in antelope country at all, you've seen all these established crossings, and it may be a quarter mile between a crossing or a mile between crossings. And the other thing is most guys have barbed wire on the bottom of their fences just because that's what they've always done. But what they found is when antelope crawl under them is they get a lot of hair damage. A lot of time they'll get a lot of damage right into their skin. And if you've done much antelope hunting, you'll see a lot of antelope out there with big patches of hair permanently missing on their backs. So it was really affecting the survival of antelope. So Alberta Fish and Game Association, together with Alberta Conservation Association, came up with a project to work with private landowners to go in and modify their fences at no cost to the landowner, to make them more friendly to pronghorn. And the buy-in's just been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, most landowners want to be friendly to wildlife. It's just they didn't know what they were doing was wrong or anything like that. So that was 11 years ago. I was asked to do this project for 1 year, and I just fell in love with it. I loved working with the landowners. Our volunteers are just the absolute best people in the world. In 11 years, I've got volunteers that have maybe missed 2 or 3 projects. We do 3 projects a year. So, some of those people have been to 30 different volunteer projects on their dime to come down and work hard strictly for antelope. So it's been a really good thing for antelope. And that's been the whole. So the Alberta Conservation Association, they radio collared a bunch of antelope, found some prime migration corridors, and that's kind of where we've been working. But there's been some great spin-offs from it too. Certainly landowners look at hunters with a different eye now because, if you've got hunters coming out working for free, making their fences better. So that's been good. We're about 50-50 on our volunteers between hunters and non-hunters. Probably when we started, we had one group that would been anti-hunters, and they've come around to, so you've got non-hunters and hunters working side by side, both working just as hard for the same goal. So it's kind of brought that together too. A lot of the landowners now are starting, when they build new fences, they're following our guidelines. So it's just been a win-win-win, and we do it really cheap. I mean, we do it just on some small grants to make this whole project happen. And so we're doing about 30 miles of fence a year. Yeah, so I think we're at over 500 kilometers now.
So TJ, do you guys like for new fence? Do you have agreements with them to that when they do put up a new fence that they're gonna sort of raise that for you so that you don't have to come back? Or
no, we don't. Everything's done in a handshake. There's no commitment from them at all. The only commitment for them is to allow us on their property for the 5 days when we're doing the fencing.
And what about the government? Because they must have a lot of pasture land that's fenced for the government.
And actually, they are getting better. It was a real struggle in the beginning to try and get the government to cooperate with what we were doing. So now they are starting to come on board a little bit. I think just from the public pressure. And that's been the great thing too, is all of a sudden you've got all these private landowners surrounding, grazing leases and things like that. And, they're going, well, why aren't you doing this? We are. And so there's been a lot of public pressure as well on the government. And plus some of our landowners just said, I lease this land. The fence maintenance is up to me, so we're pronghorn friendly fencing it. So we've done a lot of that as well. It's kind of beg forgiveness later, I think is kind of been the philosophy, but it's been a good buy-in, and there's no downside to it at all. And I think that's been the good thing. There's been no cost. The landowners aren't bound by any contracts. And I couldn't think of one that's built a new fence after that hasn't used our standards. So I don't know. It's been a super cool project, and I think like I got the easy job. Like I'm the logistic guy. I line up the volunteers. Make sure all the wires there. We go out and roll out the wire. But for the 2 days that the volunteers are actually doing all the hard work. So typically, what we'll do is if it's a 4-strand fence, we'll go out, take one strand off, roll it up before the volunteers get there, roll out a strand of smooth wire for them to staple up on the bottom. So when they show up, they have to pull all the wires, all the staples and the wires. Then we put the bottom at 18 inches, and then we respace the other ones with the top at a maximum of 42 inches. And we get wildlife friendly spacing in between there. So it's a pretty big job. Like we've got to do, 4 staples on pull out 3 staples on every post and put 4 into every post. So it's a lot of work. And basically on those days, like I'm a glorified golf cart girl. I mean, I drive around and make sure they have cold water and juice and stuff like that. They do all the hard work, and God bless them. And a lot of our volunteers are like in their 60s. We had one guy that used to come out was 83 years old. We had another guy that was 80 years old. And, we're just kind of whatever anybody can do. It's, we're not trying to push anyone to work too hard. And, if you can come out and work an hour and that's all you're physically capable of, God bless you for coming, kind of thing. And, other people come out and work an 8-hour day. So we've started working with a company called Fence Fast out of British Columbia that's actually lending us power staplers now. So that's made our life so much easier. So we don't have to hammer anymore, but still all the staples are pulled out by hand, but at least we're not hammering. So it's really upped our productivity and made things a lot easier for the volunteers.
TJ, one thing about your show and other shows, so I know Canada has 2 networks now that broadcast. What about the mainstream media? Like I've seen a real drop. Saturdays and Sundays, you'd always get the odd show that would be on mainstream. Do you find that the quality has been diluted because we have 2 networks now, or what do you think about that? Or is it better?
No, it's definitely been diluted. And the reason for that is both those networks have to run 35% Canadian content in prime time to meet CRTC regulations. So when there was only one network, it didn't take a lot to meet that 35% requirement. But all of a sudden, when there's 2 networks, it took twice as much. So, not to criticize, but you see a lot of, the networks trying to produce their own shows on a shoestring budget and, offering people, here's your chance to be on TV and everything else. And there's a lot of shows that, are done really cheaply with no business plan in mind, no future in mind. It's, I think it's people want to be on TV for a year or 2, and here's it is. And sometimes, I guess part of my problem as a producer, I mean, I learned how to produce when you still put 2 pieces of tape together and tape them together, right? Like I go back that far. So, I mean, I learned how to edit really well. Most people that edit today have never, ever taken an editing course even. They don't know how to edit, but it's so easy to use the computer programs now that they think they're an editor. And yeah, they can perform the function of pushing the buttons fine, but to actually make it seamless and flow together. And that's what bothers me sometimes when I watch TV. And I don't know if the average person really notices it or not. But the thing that concerns me is always portraying hunting in a good, positive, respectful light. And I think sometimes that can get a little bit lost. And I don't criticize anyone, like some people get all upset when somebody's, gets really happy and does a fist pump at the end of a hunt or something. We've all seen people do that off TV. I mean, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. And then, guys like Cody, like there's not a more excitable guy on this planet. And God, I love that. I mean, I appreciate that. So that kind of stuff, I don't really criticize it, but it's just when the animals aren't treated with, the respect they're due, the hunt isn't treated with the respect that's due. And I think that's where we really have to be careful in just pumping out as much programming as we can, just to meet CRTC regulations.
Some of the, I can speak on behalf of Muck. We're big into giving back to youth and getting kids involved in hunting. I'm involved with the NAS program in Saskatchewan at our school and with the Parkland Outdoor Show. And Muck does a bunch of stuff through with Cabela's and so forth and so on. Can you tell us what's your involvement with youth, and are there some things that you kind of wear as a badge of honor when it comes to youth and hunting?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely work with, I do a lot of work with Alberta Fish and Game Association. I've worked with quite a few of their youth programs. I do quite a bit of work with Safari Club. I've done a lot of work with, their youth programs as well. I mean, I've never had kids, so I mean, I really don't have that tie to youth, but I mean, certainly recognize that how important it is to have that the future hunters and fishermen are, we're going to lose. I mean, we're close enough to losing this heritage as it is. So yeah, I mean, anytime any group asks me to come, speak to youth, we've done some youth hunts, things like that. I'm more than happy to do it. I think those are the things that, like I say, are going to keep this heritage alive. The other thing we've done a fair bit of is we've done a fair bit of wounded warrior work too. And, I certainly have a lot of respect for our veterans. And, we've done some super cool hunts with some really neat people there. So that's really been a passion of ours. And it's some, again, we're looking at doing another one next year. So I think you have to give back. And it's kind of a fine line. I mean, you could work every day for free if you want. I mean, you do have to say no, but you also have to give back because, there was a lot of people gave, over the years that I got here. So you got to find that real balance in life. And I hate saying no to anyone, and just sometimes I have to because I only have so many hours in a day, but it's definitely something that's really important to us.
Yeah, I know, Darren, there isn't a guy in this planet that does more for his community and sports in general than Darren. I think that's one of the reasons that him and I became friends is because of our passion of giving back and especially for the outdoors. And I think that's why we started this program. Actually, was Darren and I talked about doing a sort of a Zoom chat thing like this for a couple of years, but he's always so busy. But when COVID hit, it was just a perfect opportunity. And I'm sure, just like with your show, TJ, you get people all the time that you wouldn't expect that would watch it, that'll get a hold of you. And I find that with Darren and I all the time, like with the talent or the personalities that we have on here, people always are getting stuff back. And I don't know, we always seem to ask our guests because it seems like the community is so involved in giving back.
Yeah. And I guess for me, like the acid test always is when somebody asks me to do something, it's like, are you trying to make money off having me there? Or are you trying to do a good community service by having me there? If the answer is yes to making money off me, I want to get my share. If you're trying to do good for the community, I'm all there. Like I'm all in on that. So that's always been kind of my acid test right from day one on, how, because, if I get 50 requests, I mean, I do have to kind of go through them and maybe pick the 10 I can do or whatever it is. But, certainly the ones it's just, and you'll always get people trying to, this will be good for your profile or this. And I mean, well, no, it won't. It'll be good for you. But no, if it's going to be good for kids or something good in the community, good for veterans, something like that. Yeah, we're 100% on board.
I think one of the shows that Darren and I talked about that we haven't done yet that we need to get our ducks in a row is we want to have a youth show, have some kids on. And I know Darren's got a couple of young guys that are really itching at getting in the outdoors. And he's actually, Darren, you should tell us your project your boys got on right now that they might have been a little bit more than they can handle, but.
Well, they want a boat in the worst way. They love fishing. And we have some friends that take them out on their boat. And of course I don't have a boat. And they're like, Dad, we got to get a boat. Dad, we got to get a boat. It's like, yeah, we can get a boat. I said, but you got to earn the boat. Like, I'm just going to go buy a boat for you. Well, how can we do that? Well, I said, you can push snow and cut grass. I said, and they're like, what about shed hunting? I know you can sell your sheds. I was like, yeah, we can go look for sheds. So I don't know how many kilometers we put on last year, but they sold 135 pounds of sheds this past fall and they made $1,290.
Holy.
So I came in the morning and laid the money out. I had the money in my pocket and I said, how much? Because I knew the guy was coming. He was coming after their bedtime. And I said, how much you think you got for your sheds? And they had the bathroom scale outside and they're weighing their sheds and all sorts of stuff. So, well, Nate, who's my oldest one, he's like, oh, I think $300. I said, Nash, what do you think? He's like, well, I don't know, maybe $200. So I start counting out the bills, and they're like, their jaws dropped, and all of a sudden they're like, well, how big of a boat can we buy? And of course, they have to split it. We have to split it 3 ways because it's Nate, Nash, and then our little girl, because it's not fair that they don't give her a chunk. So we split it 3 ways, and they're like, well, how much money? How big of a boat can we buy for $1,200? I was like, not a very big one to take everybody in it. So now they're like, well, what else can we do? And I was like, well, maybe we can get firewood. So we've been cutting firewood and selling it to, people who are in their fish shacks or whatever. So we got we got an interesting project on the go right now. A campground down at the Lake of the Prairies has asked us to supply some of their firewood, but it's not supply some. It's like 25 cords. So we've been working with that. So my garage is full of firewood right now, bagged firewood. But it's just like where I came from. It's hard work gets you kind of what you want, and just being in the outdoors. Like last year, I honestly lost how many kilometers we walked looking for sheds, and they were so adamant about finding an elk shed. They wanted to find one in the worst way, and we did find one. And Nate and I found a real good size moose shed. So they got the itch. They're waiting for cold weather so antlers could drop. So it's been really motivating that way, and just getting them outside and teaching them about scrapes and rubs and different things around the bush, and kind of testing them where we go walk out and okay, whereabouts are we? How do we get back to the truck? And those type of things, right? That you can read about them, but until you get out there and experience them, it's been a kind of a real God blessing. And honestly, I made a video comment the other day about COVID. If there's a silver lining in COVID, it's about getting outside, getting back to the outdoors, hunting, fishing, trapping, just enjoying those times with family and friend at a distance, of course, but just those ideas of just getting back to nature. And I think if there's a silver lining in this whole thing, that's what's come out of it. So yeah, it's been fun.
That's a cool
Hey,
story.
TJ,
I love that.
have you asked Richard if they've noticed more people trapping now because of COVID?
Well, they're on a registered trap line, so it's controlled, so they wouldn't notice it. But I would definitely say, resident trappers who are off registered trap lines, the numbers would be up. And certainly we noticed the hunting numbers are way up this year, and even the license sales bore that out. I think in the last couple of years we're up 30% hunters in Alberta or something. It's crazy how many hunters we've had.
The same things here in southeastern Saskatchewan, and I say it's kind of a blessing. And it little bit like it's great to see that many whitetail hunters, but I will say our whitetail took a real beating because they just finally are bouncing back from the winter we had a couple of years ago where it really decimated, and it was great to see all the hunters this year. But man, I'll tell you, anything with a split antler and whitetail was getting shot at. So yeah. It's great to see, but it also really, our whitetail really took a hit.
Yeah, and I mean, we really noticed that, like, we're in a general elk area where I live, so everybody bought an elk tag this year, and it was the same thing. There was a lot of elk went down, and not that it's a bad thing either, but it certainly, it was a different year hunting for us. Like, I mean, we pattern elk pretty easily. We usually kill elk pretty easily. And this year it was just with so many people hunting on so many different properties, those elk were just running everywhere. You could never pattern them. And, like we've got 1,500 acres where we hunt on, which sounds like, a big chunk of property. If the neighbor shoots an elk, we lose all our elk for a week kind of thing. So right. It was a challenging year. Like, we had 2 chances of bull elk the whole entire season. And, thankfully we capitalized on both of them, but you're exactly right. Like, every road you went down, and once you got out onto public land, you definitely noticed there was vehicles everywhere. It was funny, like even Kananaskis country, which is just to the west of us, is very popular with hikers and things like that. There was so many people out there, they had to actually close parking lots. And this was just people getting out to hike and recreate, not even hunters alone. But there was a lot of people, and, it's a great thing that they're getting out there to enjoy it. But, when you've been used to not fighting with those crowds, it does take away some of the pleasure.
Yeah. So TJ, we're going to let you go here real quick. But I know the last time we got together, I asked you what you would give for advice to somebody that was starting a show. Kind of like the do's and don'ts from somebody that's been in it for two decades.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure what I said then, it's my always advice is make a business plan, treat it like a business. So, look at your costs, look at your potential revenue, and, don't overestimate any of that stuff. And, at the end of the day, have you got enough money to fund it? What's your long-term plan with it? Is there a time when you're going to start making money out of this? The biggest advice, if you're going to get into television because you like hunting, stay the heck out of television. I mean, it doesn't, I'll tell you what, being in television does not make a hunt better. Right now, it detracts from the hunt a lot. And I'm sure you can talk to that, Darren, too. I mean, it's, there's a lot of things we have to do. I mean, I've passed up shots on tremendous animals because the camera couldn't get it, things like that. cold, ugly days, we have to be out there, we have to do all our cutaways, we have to do all our talks, everything else. You probably want to be back drinking rum with your buddies. So if you're getting in television just because you like hunting and think it'd be cool to be on TV, don't. Like, it's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
If you want to look at making a career out of hunting, you're never going to get rich doing television, but I mean, there is some money to be made. So, test the waters, like call up Wild TV, call up Sportsman Channel, find out what it costs to air on there. Talk to some potential sponsors, are they willing to give you any money? And that's all things that go into a good business plan. You should have a good enough business plan at the end of it. You could go to a bank and they would give you a loan. If you don't have that, you're probably not going to succeed. I don't know many shows that have ever succeeded without treating it as a business. And, you look at the longtime shows. I mean, people like Cody and Jim and, even Jason Peterson, they all treated this as a business first, and they were all very, very successful at what they did. And, that's exactly what we do as well. And I guess kind of look at the offshoots of what you can do with that as well. Can you write for magazines? Can you be a seminar speaker? Can you write for the internet? Are there other things because you're on television that can make you money? You look at Schwanky, I mean, he's making a lot of money being an outfitter because he's on TV. So, there's things like that. The money doesn't all have to come from sponsors or from the actual television show, but is that television program going to drive other revenue into you? And, at the end of the day, you're going to put way more hours into, I think I calculated that day, I put about 30 to 36 hours just editing one TV show. So,
Wow.
If I actually look at what I'm making per hour,
you're not making good.
No, it's not. I mean, I could be making a lot more money doing other things, but there is, it is a lifestyle as well. And I enjoy what we do. And the one thing the TV show allows us to do is travel a lot. So I do appreciate that, but don't do it if it's not going to be a business to you. Just get out there and enjoy hunting. And if you want to take a camera along, film for your friends, throw it up on YouTube, do that. But once you make a business out of it, you better start treating it as a business. And a lot of the fun definitely goes out of it at that point. And everybody else at the end of the day, when we're at camp, I always think when we're outfitters camps, that, at the end of the day, everybody's back in, they're having drinks, everything else. And, we're in there logging footage from the day and cleaning the cameras and that kind of stuff. So, if that stuff's more important to you than doing it as a business, absolutely don't. But if you want to look at it as a business, yeah, it's a good business, but get a plan on paper.
So TJ, do you have any books out there? And if what channels do you air on? How can people follow you?
So probably we're on Sportsman Channel Canada. Just if you go to our website at outdoorquesttv.com, you can pretty much find out everything you need to know there. And I don't know, we don't we don't have it much for sale or anything. We don't even have a store with gear for sale or anything. We just kind of do what we do. But
okay.
And yeah, Vanessa and I, we both have other real jobs. I work for Alberta Fish and Game Association and shoe some horses and do some ranch work and all kind of stuff that actually pay. She works at a law firm. So, this isn't our main income. So maybe we don't spend as much time on some of the other parts of it that, that could make some money. But for the most part, we just I love the production side. I love making TV and I love.
You don't have a book out right now?
No, I did a fishing book quite a few years ago called Walleye Across the West. And I don't even, man, that was a long time ago that I wrote that. So I've got a couple book ideas in my head right now. And I guess if I ever have time, and I kind of am one of those guys that's working, 8 or 10 hours, 7 days a week right now, just on stuff. I'm always busy doing something. So that's kind of on the back burners. Books are another one of those things. There's not a lot of money in it. And, right now I still have to make a living. So maybe when I'm older and whatever retired looks like, I'll write my memoirs.
Well, right on. Darren, you got anything for TJ before?
Well, I just appreciate the work that you put in and the longevity of your career and the things you've done as a Canadian. I know, like you just said, maybe the market is not so great up here for TV when it comes to that, but the longevity to be in the business this long and to continue to produce what you're producing, hats off to you. And like I said, I do have a newfound respect for the people that do put quality TV together, just being out there and kind of following Cody around for those 6 days. I was stressed out for him, right? Because there was
Cody will do that to you, so.
Yeah. But thanks for producing quality TV, and you know, you're one of the guys that we'd like to bring into Yorkton to the Parkland Outdoor Show if we can ever get past COVID and get back on our feet and running it. But you know, the show would like to have you come out to Yorkton. I know that, you know, we do a survey and your name pops up in the survey every year, and we haven't found the piece to put that together yet to have you there. But you know, with upcoming years coming up, we'd love to have you in Yorkton to do some presentations. So
Awesome. Thank you guys. I really appreciate this. Even if we had to do it twice, it was.
Yeah. Well, you know, thank you very much for your time for ×2. I appreciate it, TJ, and good luck in the upcoming season. We'll all be following you. And like Darren said, I want to see you in the at the Parkland Outdoor Show and Expo.
I'd love to be there. Thanks you guys so much. It's been so much fun.
thanks, TJ.
Thank you.
Be safe.